So there is Shaheed, martyr, who is martyr dunya-wise only. May Allah not make us of those. And akhirah-wise only, and martyr in both dunya and akhirah. Martyr dunya-wise only is what? The person who, dies for the wrong purpose, but we consider him to be martyr because we'll apply to him the rulings of martyrs. Like he went to the battlefield to show off, or we went to the battlefield for some other purpose, not the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he died in the battlefield. We will give him the rulings of martyrs, but he is really not a martyr akhirah-wise, just martyr dunya-wise. We'll give him the rulings of the martyrs in the dunya, okay? And then there are martyrs akhirah-wise. And the martyrs akhirah-wise, in some hadith 5 were mentioned, and some hadith 7 were mentioned. And people who are literal, you could be literal, it is fine. If this is your sort of natural inclination towards literalism, it's fine. But people who like to find meaning in the revelation, find meaning in the rulings, in the ahkam, they will say this is not limited to the 5 or 7. The 5 or 7 are just prototypes. And in fact, Ibn Hajar and Fath al-Bari traced the types of martyrs up to 20. Is it 20? No, it is not 20, because these are just prototypes of people who died a severe or painful or sudden death. Painful, severe, painful, or sudden death. Because if you look at them, it is al-mabtoon. Al-mabtoon is the one who dies, al-mabtoon, al-mat'oon, sahib al-dhat al-jamb. So al-mabtoon, the one who dies from a stomach disease, like must have been a sudden illness that caused them, like peritonitis or something severe, pain in the abdomen, and immediate death thereafter. Sahib Dhat al-Jamb is likely the one who was afflicted by pleurisy, which is a severe painful condition that may result, depending on the underlying cause, in death. Al-Mat'oon is the one who was, who caught like an infectious disease. Plague would be the translation, but it's not necessarily plague. It's an epidemic disease. They did not really have laboratories. They were not looking at, under the microscope for the particular bug that caused the disease. But anything that would be like ta'un, like the plague, would be called plague. So al-mat'un is the one who had suffered from who died in an epidemic. So mat'un, mabtun, sahib dhat al-jamb. The Prophet ﷺ also mentioned al-hariq wal-ghariq, the one who drowns and the one who is burnt, wal-mayyit taht al-hadm, the one who dies under the rubble in an earthquake or something, and وَالْمَرْأَةَ تَمُوتُ بِجَمْعٍ, and the woman dies during childbirth, a woman who dies during childbirth. So these are prototypes of severe sudden death. Allah would make up His servants for the severe and or sudden death by giving them the reward of the shaheed. So this is the shaheed in ahkam al-akhirah only. So the shaheed akhirah-wise only. Do we treat them like shuhada? No, we don't. In ahkam al-dunya, we don't. We hope that they'll get the reward of the shaheed, and we say that, we will comfort ourselves with that, or we tell ourselves that yes, their death was severe, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is most merciful. Allah will make them up, compensate them for the severe and or sudden death, but we will still wash them, and we will still offer the funeral prayer for them, and do everything like regular people. Now, the shaheed in the shaheed in both, the shaheed who dies in the battlefield, as we said before, or immediately, immediately after being wounded in the battlefield, even if he was transferred out, but immediately afterwards dies, that particular shaheed will not be washed, and you will not offer the funeral prayer for him. Who's not offering the funeral prayer for him? Certainly the Hanbalis are not offering the funeral prayer for him. And it is also the position of the Shafi'is for sure. The Hanafis offer it. I'm not quite sure about the Malikis. But anyway, so the Hanafis will say, no, we will not wash, no washing. No washing is by agreement. No washing is by agreement. No one washes this, no one washes. So no washing is by agreement. But then the Hanafis will say, but we will offer the funeral prayer for them because the funeral prayer is to honor them, it's to make dua for them, and they are more deserving of being honored than the rest of us. And then the Hanafis will report from, Tahawi in Sharh Ma'ani al-Athar reported from Abdullah ibn Zubayr that the Prophet ﷺ did offer the funeral prayer for the martyrs in Uhud. And Hamza was one of them, and he offered it for him, like he made 9 takbirs for Hamza radiallahu anhu. So they use this in addition to ratiocination, which is the rational proof. So the rational proofs the Hanafis used is what? He's more deserving of being honored than the rest of us. And the textual proof the Hanafis cited is what? This report that Tahawi traced to Abdullah ibn Zubayr, that the Prophet did offer the funeral prayer for the Shuhada of Uhud. What did the majority count on when they said that you don't offer the funeral prayer for them? Is a report in Bukhari from Jabir radiallahu anhu that the Prophet did not offer the funeral prayers for the martyrs of Uhud. So there is a conflict here. So it is interesting, but we don't have time for this, but it is interesting to see how they sort of discuss this matter. So the Hanafis will say Jabir was too busy. His father died and his uncle died. He was too busy taking care of them and burying them, and he may have not noticed that the Prophet ﷺ offered the funeral prayer because he went back to Al-Madinah quickly to tend to his family members who died in war. And then the others will say, no, they're, whatever the report that Tahawi traced to Abdullah ibn Zubayr, this is controversial in authenticity, and it may be that the Prophet ﷺ prayed for them later in the sense of not offering a funeral prayer in that technical sense of funeral prayer, but just made dua for them. Anyway.